Hello there, everyone. Good evening and welcome. I'm glad you can join me for this session on NLP and paying attention. To start off with, though, there will be just a few housekeeping rules. One is that you're all on mute, so you can make as much noise as you like in the background, and that's quite okay. There's an audio button just on your right-hand side. If you're having problems dialing in or anything like that, you can actually dial in and listen to the webinar. There's a chat box there as well. If you have any questions or would like to make any comments as we go through, please feel free to use that. I aim to keep these webinars really brief to just give you snaps and snippets of little bits of information and things that techniques, maybe some tools you can take away and use straight away, and hopefully just encourage you to really explore and be curious and play with whatever it is that we talk about with the techniques and so on. So this is not actually an NLP training, but it is just some information sharing opportunity. And so without further ado, I'll get started. So today's session is about paying attention, and attention is a real interesting word. It can be a very abstract word. I mean, what do you mean by attention? And it can also be very specific in terms of what are we paying attention to. So attention in NLP is very important because what we pay attention to determines how we live, what we experience, and so on. So here's just a brief definition again of what NLP is about, and it's really just a way of really understanding how the language of our mind helps create and affects the patterns we use in daily life. So when we delve into NLP, we tease that apart and really to get to understand how what we think really creates our reality, how we can change that if we like, or how we can use what we currently do and just make it a little bit better. In terms of attention, the NLP communication model is really important in helping us understand how we create meaning from the reality. And you see here there's an external event. It comes in, we filter it, we take it in through our senses, our 5 senses. So we filter all that information. And then internally in our minds, we also go through another round of filtering, which is really important. And this filtering that happens in our mind, we delete the information, we delete part of the information that comes through, we distort and generalize it. The reason being, at any point in time, we've got something like 2 million bits of information per second coming in to our system, and really our body, our nervous system can't handle that much information. So what our nervous system does, and this is a great, survival tool or adaptive tool that helps us be able to cope with our environment, we actively select bits and portions of all that data that's out there to pay attention to. And we select on the basis of the filters that we have inside of us, that all human beings have. We all have the same filters, regardless of nationality, of culture, of language, and so on. We all have filters inside that help sort through all that data that's coming through. And you'll see here on the screen some of the filters that we have in place. So the things like meta programs, the decisions that we've made in the past, our memories influence what we pay attention to in our environment. Our values and beliefs are very important in helping us determine what we pay attention to and what we don't. If something's really valuable and important to you, then very likely you'll pay attention to that. And if it's not, it's something that you might just not even notice. It might be something in the environment there that you're not even paying attention to at all. And so this level here is another level of filtering, and this helps us sort through the information and the data, and it's on the basis of that we actually make meaning and sense of what's going on in our environment and in our world. So you see what happens is the filters impact our thinking processes. So we think, we have internal thinking, which is based on our senses. So we represent The external world, we represent that internally through our thought processes. We represent them visually. You might have images going on in your mind, auditorily, words, sounds, feelings also might be part of our internal thinking process, which creates our state, which you see over here. So how we think determines how we feel. It also influences how we hold our body. And all of these three things combined form a cybernetic loop which impacts our external behaviour. So we create meaning based on the filters that we have in our world, internally. And those filters actually create our own model of the world, which is what I really want to say. So the filters create our model of the world, and our model of the world is what we use as a map, or like a tool book, or to guide us in how we operate in the world. It's got rules in there, what we'll do, what we won't do, and so on. So each of us, although we may have this similar filters, we have different content, because what we pay attention to is different on the outside. So each one of us will have a different model of the world, and this in essence really explains why some people will have the same event, be at the same party, for example, and be telling different stories about that party afterwards, and why two people can be brought up in the same family and again have different experiences or different viewpoints on what actually occurs. I know when my daughters think back to things that happened in their childhood, they tend to describe them differently when they're thinking about the same thing, and so we do as well. So the filters and all of this combine to create our external behaviour. So and that's a real important thing to keep in mind when we're talking about attention and where we actually place our attention, because in this sense here it's the attention we're placing externally on what comes in and how we actually interact with our environment and with the world. So there's lots of different types of attention, and you can see here there's sort of just a little bit of an understanding of what attention might mean or can mean actually. We understand that it's directed in through the senses, but there's two types in this session. What I'd like to focus on is two types of attention, and that's attention, external and internal attention. And when we pay attention to the outside world, that's where we live and can experience all sorts of different things, whatever it is that's going on in your environment, whether it's an experience of travel or a different career or learning something new. All these experiences on the outside that we participate in help enrich our thinking and to some extent expand or change our model of the world based on what we learn and what we experience. So when we pay attention outside, we can actually enrich our world and enrich our experiences. And then there's the opposite, almost the opposite, is paying attention on the inside. And it's really important to get a distinction between the two to sort of experience that in your body and understand what it is to be out and what it is to be inward looking or paying attention inside. When you pay attention inside, it's really understanding what is going on in your world, in your internal world, and becoming sensitive to that and aware of that helps you develop certainty about who you are and how you want to give and move through the world, which is really important. Some people find it very easily to go inside and spend a lot of time in internal reflection and just thinking about things and exploring their own internal world, which can be very rich. And some people don't. Some people don't spend a lot of time on self-reflection, thinking about their own selves and about what's going on inside. In terms of communicating and being excellent in communicating with other people and building relationships, in building rapport, knowing when to be inward focused or outward focused is really critical. And knowing how to go in and out easily and flexibly is also very critical as well. So what we're going to do is explore the inward-outward focus and attention a little bit further just to give you a sense of what it is and what we actually do when we're using NLP or training with NLP. So the first type of attention is internal attention, and another description of that could be downtime. So this might be when you're when you're dreaming, or when you're visualizing something, when you go in and just think about what life might be about. This is the time when you go inside and just might spend some time in there looking about what you think about or how you feel about various things. Sometimes people don't like to go inside a lot because they might be a little bit afraid of connecting maybe to emotions. It might be unfamiliar, or they might feel like if I connect too much to how I feel, that I might not be able to control my emotions. So sometimes there might be some fear there that people can let go of when they learn that going inside is just an absolutely natural thing to do. Another really good reason to learn to have downtime is to relax. We all know about that and how important that is to be able to relax. And also to learn more about yourself, who you are, how you think, how you feel, and that gives you a sense of certainty and confidence in your own thinking process when you do that. The other good reason for doing that too is, from an NLP point of view, it's when you understand how you think and what you think, what you feel, how you actually do that. There are opportunities there to change things if things aren't working for you or not effective in your life. So it might be some emotions that you feel about various things that you're in effect of and you'd like to change. And you can do that, but the first step really is identifying what it is that's going on the inside. So what I thought I would do really is just a brief exercise to help you explore that inner attention a little bit further. And this only really takes a couple of minutes. It's called a personal inventory. And this is something you can do anytime. It's about checking in and making sure that you're good for yourself. And that's a really important thing and a really important skill to do. And so what I'd like you to do, please, is just sit quietly for a moment. And I've jotted down some notes because I want to make sure that this goes and flows really well for you. So just sit quietly and just bring your awareness and your attention just to your body. Notice where is your body right now and what's going on with your body. Just sit quietly and notice. Notice that. And just starting with your feet, bring your awareness and your attention to your feet. And sort of like a scanning exercise. Move your attention just from your feet upwards and notice if there's any tension there or anything there. Notice what's going on in your body. And notice the connection between your feet and your knees and your hips and your abdomen and then your shoulders and your arms, your fingertips and hands, elbows. Oops, I've got to turn off, make sure my mobile is off. Your elbows, your arms, shoulders. Just being aware of what's going on in your body. Not wanting to change anything. Just being aware and noticing what you notice. And your neck. And your face and your head and the top of your head. Just noticing what's going on in your body. And as you do, just become aware of your thinking, of your thoughts. Are there any images that you might become aware of? You may or may not have images. Either way is good. And if you do, are they near or far? Are they located in a special place or a different place around you? Again, just paying attention, just noticing. Are there any sounds like that that are going on in your mind? Words being spoken? Is there an internal voice, perhaps? And just notice what the tonality of that voice is. Are there any feelings that you might be experiencing? Again, not wanting to change anything now, just being aware of what's there, just being present with it. Do you have a sense of your balance and your posture? Are you leaning more to the left or to the right? Just centered. Perhaps your head might be tilting. It's all okay. It just is what it is. Okay. So just being aware of everything that's going on, you can come back now into the present moment. And that's all it is just taking a few minutes to check in and see what's going on inside and just being present with it, whatever it is. And that's actually called inventory. You can do that anytime. And it's really valuable to really get connected to your inner world. So the next type of attention we're going to look at is the external attention, which we call uptime. And this is our outward focused attention, where we're looking out into the world and paying attention to what's going on in our environment around us. And this is really interesting from the point of view that we really only can consciously be aware of or process 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. So although a lot is going on around us, consciously we only can use or take up that much. However, unconsciously, our unconscious mind is taking in every single thing that's going on around us. So there's always stuff going on, much more than you actually are aware of, or much more really than you can actually, in fact, consciously pay attention to. So being uptime is important, and understanding the value of that is really critical as well. Because when we move through the world, we actually take in everything through our senses. And like we said before, that's how we actually we filter all of that and create our model of the world. But one of the important things about that is we actually use our model of the world to interpret what's going on as well. So, for example, we might mind read a lot. So we observe things on the outside and we interpret those things based on what our internal model says or that they mean. So that's how we create meaning of everything. So when you're in communication with someone or you observe something in the external world, you interpret it through your own filters. And that's really important from the point of view of when you're communicating with other people. There's a need to keep foremost in your mind that everybody has their own different model of the world. So when you're in uptime, this actually helps you, this outward focused attention, and through observing people and checking in with them, it actually helps you identify and understand other people's model of the world as well. So what we tend to do is we tend to mind read what goes on, and that mind reading is basically interpreting things using our own model of the world. And when we do that, the chances of miscommunication are actually much higher. Miscommunication, misunderstanding, unmet expectations and so on are much higher because we use our model to interpret what's going on rather than for somebody else, rather than checking in with them. And mind reading is actually an internal, an inward attending process where we go in to interpret what's going on, and then on the basis of our own interpretation, we actually respond. So this is one situation where inward focus is not actually as beneficial as it could be. So with inward attention, uptime and downtime, and outward attention, there are good things about it, and there are things that are not so beneficial about it, and really understanding those and when to use it and when not to use it is really very valuable. So in this case, when we mind read what other people think or are doing, we make our own meaning up about their behaviour, actually leads to misrepresentation. So, for example, if I was to ask you to think of a sunrise, what would you think of? And here there are two different images that are different, different images that come to mind for different people based on, and even now, I mean, there's two here on the screen, but when I ask you to think of a sunrise, you might actually think of something very different, or picture something different. You might have sounds in there, you might have words, you might have, the sound of the ocean, and the waves gently lapping on the shore. You might have colours, you might not. You might have feelings or sensation of the warmth of the sun shining on your face when it actually comes up in the sky. So we each have our own understanding of that, of what things mean. And the only way to really get into somebody else's model and understand is really to ask them and to be very observant of how they respond and how they behave. And we're going to talk about sensory acuity in just a moment. That's one way of actually learning about that, or being able to observe what's going on. So mind reading is important, and it's important to know when we do it. And the risks of actually doing it really is that we might impose our own model on other people. We might make judgments about them that are really don't help. In essence, don't help or don't support them, or really support yourself, because they can be very untrue. So how do we check in? How do we make sure that we're not mind reading? How do we become more objective rather than subjective in our observations, in our interpretations of what's going on? Well, in NLP, this is, again, we're looking at uptime or outward external attention. And sensory acuity is the NLP way of learning to pay attention, or of actually paying attention to what's going on in your environment. So sensory acuity really is about the ability to notice and monitor external cues of other people objectively and in an uptime state. So really, to be able to observe other people, you need to be uptime. Your attention needs to be outward. It can't really be inside. It needs to be outward, focused out, noticing what's going on around you. Now, this is a real interesting one from the point of view of emotional intelligence. One of the aspects of emotional intelligence, or people who are considered high on the EQ scale, is that they have the ability to observe and notice other people's responses and emotion, an emotional state, and be able to respond appropriately. So if you don't really notice what's going on around you or how people are responding, then on the emotional IQ or emotional quotient, that tends to be a little bit low, and that's an area of development. It's really an opportunity here. I think one of the key skills of really effective managers and leaders is they have the ability to notice the impact their communication is having on other people, and then they adjust their communication in relation to that feedback from others. So sensory acuity, noticing other people, so what is it that you pay attention to? And in NLP, they're called accessing cues. These are cues that people use to express or represent what they are experiencing inside. So you might notice things like skin color changes. You know, people might go, the color of their skin might flush. It might go from pale to colored or darker color, or sometimes a reddish pinky color. The skin tone might change, so in someone's face. And these are just examples. There's lots more that we spend quite a bit of time of in our certification program, teaching people and going through exercises to really bed this down. Such a critical skill. So skin tone is someone's, let's say their face might, their forehead might be smooth and it might go to wrinkly, or their eyebrows might go up, or maybe their lip, the lip size might change. It might go from full lip to a narrow, thin-looking lip. Breathing is a really good one to be observant of and to pay attention to. Is someone's breathing fast, or are they breathing slow and low? That's meant to be slow there. But are they breathing slow and deep down in their body? Are they breathing high and shallow in their chest? Where is their breathing, and how does that change based on what's going on around them or even around you? I think one of the first things really is to understand your own self, how all of these sensory cues, or these how they change for you in response to various external stimulus. So people's eye movements change, and you might know about the eye accessing movements that people use. Again, it's a reflection of what's going on for them internally in their mind. As they move up, people are accessing a visual images. When they're around midline, they're looking at auditory. And when they're looking down, it tends to be emotions and feelings about various things. And also auditory digital, which is another representation system, which I haven't mentioned here, but there's so much more that goes on in this as well. This is just to give you an idea of some things that you can actually start looking for and identifying externally. Physiology is another one. Person's posture, is it slumped, is it erect, is it upright, the angle of their spine, the head tilt as well, which way do they tilt their head. Noticing voice and listening really well and paying attention to the voice. Do they speak in a monotone, or is it quite melodious? Is it clipped? Is it short? Is it fast? Are the words they speak fast and quick, or are they slow and with some pauses in between them? So language is really important as well. And our language reflects really our representational system. It reflects the senses that we use to code it in our system. So these are just some things that you can learn more about. You can certainly Google to my website and have a look at some more information about various things. And you can also email me as well if you need some more information. So being in an uptime state, paying attention to what's going on around you, looking for sensory cues that people might be using. And then what you might do is you use these observations, which are very objective observations, to make meaning. And you do that by what we call calibration. And calibration is really just a process and a skill of making meaning of what's going on around you. So I'm not using my model to interpret or to make meaning of what's going on. I'm actually just looking at observing the behavior, and very critically, number 2, he says, I'm checking in with the individual, with the person, to ask them what that behavior or thing might mean for them. So, for example, there's a lot of stuff on Google out there about body language, and there are rules about what different postures and gestures mean and so on. And in NLP, though, that's a little bit of a double-edged sword. In NLP, we don't believe really that there is any gesture that really, or posture that really means something, unless it means that for that individual. So an example here is someone who has their arms crossed. And typically in a lot of body language literature, that would mean that this person is really closed down, doesn't want anything to do with you, and they're just saying no, enough. In actual fact, there's nothing to say that this person might not be feeling perhaps cold, or they might be feeling, that when they cross their arms, they feel more comfortable. They might be feeling being thoughtful. It doesn't necessarily mean every time someone crosses their arms that they're closed off, or that they're protecting themselves, or that that they don't want to interact. For example, is another thing. It's like, stay away from me. I don't want to talk to you. So what we would do in this case is, if you're in conversation with someone and they might just cross their arms, you might just with a lot of rapport, just say, look, John, I noticed you just crossed your arms. Is there something going on? What's happening? And very likely, 9.9 times out of 10, John will turn around and say, look, I'm just a bit tired, or I'm not feeling comfortable, or whatever it is John is feeling. So asking what's happening and checking in is really critical. I could very easily, for example, have mind read that position and say, well, John is not interested in me, he doesn't want to talk to me, I'm not going to talk to him, so when I see him, I'm going to ignore him. And that's what a lot of people do. They make up their own stories in their own mind about what certain gestures and behaviours mean. There's another picture there about someone at a meeting and they're yawning. And this actually happened to me. I was doing a presentation in front of a group of executives. And it was quite a serious presentation. It was a proposal for a training budget. And one of the senior executives started to yawn. And this was pre-NLP, but at the time, my stomach dropped. Like, I just felt like, oh my God, this person is not interested whatsoever in anything I have to say. And I remember walking out of that meeting feeling really disheartened and, feeling like, what's the point? Anyway, at the time, I went and I spoke to my manager afterwards about that, and he said, the names have been changed to protect the innocent, but he said, look, Jack was yawning. He had a very difficult night. He has a newborn baby, and he hadn't slept all night. So I spoke to him about that, and he was actually very interested, but he was just so tired. And I was just so relieved. So checking in and asking what things mean is really, really important, because I very easily could have given up on this manager or on this executive, and it really would have changed our relationship from then on as well. So here are some examples of things we can have a look at. This is a picture, and this is really to help you identify or get the difference between objective descriptors and subjective ones, or ones based on our own model of the world. So here's a lady like this, and I want you to really have a guess at what she might be feeling, what her state is at the moment. And if I were to guess what her state is, I think she looks annoyed. Really, she looks like she has an attitude like, talk to the hand type of thing. She looks a bit pissed off. In fact, but if I were to describe, and that's my mind read, that's based on my model of the world, based on how I think that I might see someone like that, whose physiology is like that, and so on. But if I were to look at what I really observe, I observe that her arms are crossed tightly in front of her body, her eyebrows are lifted, her forehead is a little bit wrinkled, based on the fact that she's got, her eyes maybe are staring out a bit, the corners of her mouth are turned down, so she's a little bit disinterested. So all these photos I got, there's another one after this, which I'll show you in a moment. All these photos I actually got off the internet, off this body language site, which actually explained what the actual emotion was that this person was experiencing when they took the picture. So I thought she looked annoyed, and in actual fact, it's actually disbelief. So if I had gone ahead on the premise that she was annoyed and angry, maybe I would not have approached her, for example, to share information about a presentation or about work for a client or anything like that. I would have given her space. But based on the fact that she's in a disbelief state, not an angry state, I might actually deal with that a little bit differently. We've got another one here to share with you as well. And this one, again, if I look at her and, might very well interpret her behaviour as, oh, I can't be bothered, here we go again. She doesn't want to be at work, maybe. She's looking lazy and maybe a little bit fed up. That's what I think. If I pay attention more so to what I observe, she's really slouched in the chair. Her shoulders are hunched. Her mouth is turned down a little bit. Her eyes are looking up, so she might be visualizing something, an image or something like that. And her mouth is slightly open. And there might be some other things, her breathing may be low in her body based on how she's slouching. It's very difficult to breathe high in your chest. When you're slouching down, you tend to breathe a bit low. So that's what I think, that's what I observe, and that's what I think. In actual fact, her state is she's just tired. So again, what hopefully and what I've learnt to do over the years is actually checking with people when I think that something's going wrong or something looks a bit different in terms of their physiology that may not be so effective. And I check in with them and say, hey, what's happening? And in this case, she would have said to me, hey, I'm tired. I'm not really disinterested. I'm very interested in what you have to say, but I'm actually feeling a bit tired. So developing your sensory acuity and the ability to observe what's going on out there is really, really important. And checking in with people, not mind reading what you think is going on and making meaning based on your own belief systems, but really finding out what's going on for the other person. And when you do, you get a deeper understanding of other people's model of the world. You get the ability to develop deeper rapport because you can match various aspects of what's going on for them and build better quality, more intimate relationship in many respects because they're more honest only in the sense that everything is put on the table. There is no guessing going on, which really ends up to be to the detriment of both people involved in that communication. So I would really encourage you to practice sensory acuity. And remember to do that. This is about being uptime, being in an externally, your attention is out there externally. Choose one of those accessing cues to work on and practice observing that for a couple of days, just maybe in a meeting or something. Notice somebody's voice and how they speak and notice how it changes or it might change based on what else is going on. So notice patterns and observe things and verify for meaning. Check in before you make meaning of what's going on. Check in with the person. In our practitioner program, we actually spend quite a bit of time learning about this and practicing these skills as well. So uptime or downtime, which is it? Well, maybe it's just both. Energy flows where the attention goes. So if your energy or if your focus is outside, that's where your energy goes. If it's inside, that's also where it goes. But also make sure when it's inside that it goes in places where it's valuable for you to focus and pay attention. It might be something you want to change or just learn more about yourself. It's the getting of wisdom to know and appreciate each different type of state, uptime and downtime, and know when it's appropriate to do which. It's certainly not appropriate to be downtime or be internal when you're doing a presentation, for example. It's very important that all your senses are out there, focusing on your audience, focusing on how that sales presentation is being received. So in different contexts, it's important to be able to do different things. I think going downtime might be important when you're at home relaxing and you just want to tune the world out for a while, or just get that feeling of internal comfort and just being with yourself and just spending some time on your own. At least with today, you know, there's some skills that you might learn and practice and play with. Being observant, going inside, going outside, and knowing to which, and just some thoughts there to carry you along. Remember, be curious, playful, and be respectful. Love the people that you work with. And this brings this session to an end. I really want to thank you for, we've run out of time, so thank you for listening, and I love your feedback. If you've got any, please drop me a line. My email address is jacqui@jacquiabboud.com, and there's some information there about our certification programs. When you mention these webinars, there's a discount on our programs there for you as well. So please drop me a line. Love to hear from you. Until our next webinar. See you soon.